The $10 bill sat on the black leather check folder like it was a joke someone forgot to laugh at. The dining room was full of crystal light and soft music, but all eyes had snapped toward one table where a billionaire had just paid a bill that could cover a month's rent, then left a tip that looked like pocket change. He didn't even lower his voice when he said it. He wanted the waitress to hear. He wanted the room to hear. And when she finally reached for it, everyone leaned in, waiting for the one reaction he could use to crush her. But she didn't do what he expected. What she did with that $10 bill changed everything. Before we continue, please like and subscribe, and let us know where you're watching from. Her name was Nia Carter. She was 22, and she had learned how to keep her face calm even when her chest felt too tight to breathe. She worked nights at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, a place where the chairs were heavy, the glasses were thin as air, and the guests spoke like the world belonged to them. Nia didn't belong to that world. She belonged to bus stops at midnight, instant noodles, and a small apartment she shared with her little brother, Milo, who was 12 and pretended he wasn't scared when the lights flickered. She belonged to early mornings in a community college classroom where she studied nursing because she wanted a life that didn't depend on tips and luck. On her phone, she kept a picture of her mother lying in a hospital bed with a brave smile, the kind of smile you learn to wear when bills are piling up faster than hope. Her one private joy was numbers, not because she loved money, because she loved order. Numbers made sense when life didn't. In her apron pocket, she carried a tiny notebook with a cracked blue pen. After each shift, she wrote down her tips and hours like a ritual, a small promise to herself that she was moving forward, even if it was inch by inch. She always folded every receipt twice and clipped it with the little star-shaped paper clip that Milo had given her from his school desk. He said it was lucky. Nia kept it like it was armor. That night, the restaurant was hosting a private dinner, the kind that made the manager polish everything twice, the kind where a single guest could pay for the salaries of the entire staff for a week. The manager, Elena Park, had been moving fast since afternoon, checking table settings, inspecting collars, whispering instructions with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Elbows in, steps quiet, no mistakes, Elena had said, like the dining room was a stage, and they were all hanging above a trapdoor. Nia had nodded, because nodding was safer than asking questions. She had already worked a double shift at her other job. Yes, she had another job, then rushed here with her hair pinned tight and her uniform pressed. She hadn't eaten since noon. She told herself she could handle one more night. She always told herself that. Two subtle things happened before the billionaire arrived, and Nia noticed both. First, a small red light on the security camera above the bar blinked twice, then went steady. It had been loose for weeks, the staff complaining it didn't always record right. Nia had mentioned it to Elena again earlier, and Elena had finally called someone. Now it seemed to be working, staring down at the room like a quiet witness. Second, a man in a simple gray suit, too plain for this place, too watchful, sat at a corner table with a glass of water he barely touched. He wasn't dressed like security. He wasn't dressed like money either. He looked like someone who came here for a reason. Then the front doors opened, and the temperature of the room changed. The billionaire arrived like a headline walking in. His name was Graham Vale. People didn't say it out loud at first. They said it with their eyes. He wore a dark suit that fit like it was custom-made for his bones, and a watch that glinted when he moved his wrist, catching the light on purpose. His hair was perfectly placed, and his smile was practiced, warm enough to be believable, sharp enough to cut. He wasn't alone. With him were two guests, a woman with sleek hair and a polite, distant expression, and a younger man who laughed too easily, like he needed everyone to know he belonged there too. They were seated at the best table, a round one near the center, where they could see everyone and everyone could see them. Elena herself guided them to their seats, shoulders back, voice smooth. "Mr. Vale, welcome. We're honored." Graham didn't say thank you. He looked around as if approving furniture. "Let's keep it efficient," he said, and his eyes landed on Nia like she was a tool he was selecting. Elena gestured toward Nia. "Nia will be your server tonight. She's excellent." Nia stepped forward with a calm smile. Good evening. Can I start you with still or sparkling water? Still, Graham said. He didn't look at her when he spoke, like he was speaking to the table itself. The orders began. Complicated. Precise. No butter. Extra hot. Sauce on the side. Graham asked questions that weren't really questions, more like traps. He requested a dish that wasn't on the menu anymore, then watched her closely to see if she'd panic. Nia didn't panic. She asked one clarifying question, repeated the order back perfectly, and walked away with steady steps. Inside, her stomach twisted because she knew this kind of guest. Not loud, not messy. The calculating kind. The kind who could smile while deciding whether you deserved your job. Half an hour later, when she returned with the first course, she heard the younger man with Graham mutter, "Let's see if she's one of the grateful ones." Nia set the plates down with care. "Please let me know if you need anything adjusted." Graham finally looked at her then. His eyes were pale, almost friendly. "You seem calm," he said. "I try to be," Nia replied. He leaned back slightly. Calm servers tend to be smarter than they look. The woman with sleek hair glanced at him. "Graham." "It's a compliment," he said, still watching Nia. "Tell me, what are you studying?" Nia blinked once. "Nursing." "Interesting," he said. "Nursing is respectable." The word landed heavy. Respectable, like it surprised him. Nia held her smile. "Thank you." Graham tapped a finger against his glass. "And you wait tables to pay for it?" "Yes." He nodded, as if confirming something. "Hard work is important." Then he added, softly but clearly, "It builds character. Not everyone has it." Nia felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she didn't react. She took a small step back. "I'll check on your next course." As she walked away, she heard a few whispers from nearby tables. The kind of whispers that came when rich people put on a show and everyone else tried to pretend it wasn't happening. The night moved forward in layers. Second course. Third. Wine. Dessert. Graham's table ordered generously, but his generosity had a strange edge, like he was performing wealth, not enjoying it. Nia noticed small things as she worked. Graham kept his phone face up near his plate, angled slightly toward her. Every time she spoke, the screen lit up. The younger man laughed and glanced at the phone as if something was recording. The sleek-haired woman looked uncomfortable, but she didn't stop it. Nia also noticed that the gray-suited man in the corner table kept looking at Graham, not at the menu. He wasn't watching the restaurant. He was watching that one table. After dessert, Nia brought the check folder. The total was high enough to make her throat tighten. 4 figures, not including whatever extra they added. Graham took the folder slowly, like he enjoyed the moment. He pulled out a crisp $10 bill and laid it on top before he even looked at the total. Then he signed the receipt with a pen he carried himself, a heavy one with a silver clip. He didn't slide the folder back quietly. He held it up slightly and said, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear, $10 for good service. The younger man let out a short laugh. Someone at another table shifted in their chair. A fork clinked against a plate, and then the room went strangely quiet, like everyone was suddenly pretending they couldn't hear. Nia stood there, hands folded at her waist. She looked at the $10 bill. She looked at the receipt. She looked at Graham. Graham's smile widened. "Go on," he said softly. "Take it." This was the test. Nia could feel it. If she smiled too hard, she'd look desperate. If she frowned, she'd look ungrateful. If she said anything about the tip being small, she'd become the story he wanted to tell about servers who don't know their place. And the whole room, with their expensive coats and polished watches, would silently agree. Nia reached forward, and the room seemed to lean in. She picked up the $10 bill with 2 fingers, careful and slow. Then she held it out toward him. "I appreciate the gesture," she said, her voice steady, "but I can't accept this." The younger man blinked. "What?" Graham's eyes narrowed slightly. "You can't accept it." "No," Nia said, "because it isn't about service. It's about control." The sleek-haired woman sucked in a quiet breath. A couple at a nearby table froze mid-chew. Graham set his pen down. "Excuse me." Nia kept her tone calm. "If you had left $10 quietly, I would have thanked you and moved on. But you announced it. You wanted an audience. You wanted to measure me." Graham's smile held, but it didn't look warm anymore. "That's quite an assumption." Nia nodded once. "Maybe, but you've been filming me all night." Her eyes flicked toward his phone. "It lights up every time I speak." The younger man stiffened. The sleek-haired woman looked down at her lap, like she wanted to disappear. Graham's voice stayed smooth. "And if I was?" "Then my answer is the same," Nia said. "Keep it. Someone else might need it more." She placed the $10 bill back into the folder and closed it gently with her fingertips. Then, in one motion, she slid it toward him with the same respect she gave every table. No shaking hands, no angry face, just dignity, like a line drawn in quiet ink. For a moment, Graham didn't move. Then he laughed, one sharp sound. "So noble," he said. "So proud." Nia didn't respond. She simply stepped back. "Good night." As she turned, Graham's voice followed her, louder now, meant to sting. "I've seen hundreds like you, always thinking you're above what you are." Nia paused just for a second, not because she was afraid, because she was choosing her words the way she chose her steps, carefully. She turned back. "I'm not above anyone," she said, "but I'm not beneath you either." And then she walked away. The room didn't erupt. Real life doesn't do that. But something changed. You could feel it in the way conversations started again too slowly, in the way a few guests stared into their glasses, like they suddenly didn't like what they saw reflected there. Elena appeared at Nia's side near the service station, eyes wide, voice low and urgent. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Do you know who that is?" "Yes," Nia said quietly. "He can ruin us," Elena whispered. "He can ruin you. Go apologize." Nia looked at Elena, and there was something steady in her gaze that Elena wasn't used to seeing from staff. "I didn't insult him," Nia said. "I refuse to be used." Elena's jaw tightened. "That's not how this works." Before Nia could answer, one of the security guards approached, moving fast. "Manager," he said, "we have an issue at Mr. Vale's table." Nia felt the air shift again. Elena straightened her uniform and forced a smile. "Of course. What issue?" The guard glanced at Nia. "Mr. Vale says something is missing. An item." Elena's eyes snapped toward Nia. "What item?" "His cufflink," the guard said. "A rare piece. He claims the server may have taken it while clearing plates." The words hit like cold water. Nia's stomach dropped, but her face stayed calm. "I didn't take anything." Elena didn't answer her. She turned to the guard. "He said the server?" "Yes," the guard said. "He's requesting." He hesitated. "He's requesting her apron be checked." Nia felt every instinct rise up, hot and bright. If she refused, they would say she had something to hide. If she agreed, she would be searched like a criminal in the middle of a luxury dining room, in front of people who already thought the worst of her. Elena's voice went soft, almost pleading. "Nia, just cooperate. Please." Nia took a slow breath. She could feel Milo's little star paperclip in her pocket, pressing against the notebook like a reminder. She could also see the security camera's red light from where she stood, steady, watching. "I'll cooperate," Nia said, "but we do it properly." Elena blinked. "Properly." Nia nodded toward the camera above the bar. "Under the camera, and with a witness who isn't on his payroll." The guard frowned. Elena's expression tightened. "Nia, under the camera," Nia repeated, calm as stone, "or I will not consent." A few seconds later, they moved to a spot near the bar where the camera could clearly see. The dining room murmured now, not loud, but alive with curiosity. People leaned slightly in their chairs. Phones stayed in pockets, but eyes did the recording. Graham stood near his table, arms loosely crossed, looking disappointed, like he was tired of dealing with drama. The younger man beside him looked thrilled, like this was entertainment. The sleek-haired woman looked like she wanted to walk out. Elena approached Graham with a smile that trembled at the edges. "Mr. Vale, we're going to resolve this quickly." Graham's voice carried. "I hope so. That cufflink is worth more than this restaurant's monthly revenue." A few guests gasped quietly. Someone whispered, "Did he just say that?" Nia stood still, hands at her sides. "I didn't touch your cufflinks," she said. Graham tilted his head. "Then you won't mind being checked." Nia looked him in the eye. "I won't mind being treated fairly." Elena nodded quickly. "Fine. We'll check." The guard stepped forward. Nia lifted her arm slightly and allowed Elena, not the guard, to check her apron pockets. Elena's fingers moved quickly, nervous. Out came Nia's small notebook, her cracked pen, her server pad, and the little star-shaped paperclip that fell onto the counter with a soft metallic tap. Elena paused when she saw it. For a brief second, her expression softened, like she remembered Nia was a person with a life. "There," Graham said sharply. "Check the other pocket." Elena did. A worn key, a folded bus pass, a small envelope with Nia's name on it, containing her schedule for nursing clinical hours. Nothing else. No cufflink. Nia lowered her arms. "I told you." Graham's smile didn't move. Then someone else should be checked. Or perhaps, he shrugged lightly, perhaps she passed it off. The younger man laughed again. "Wow. Bold." Elena looked trapped between fear and fairness. The guard shifted his weight. The room buzzed in discomfort. And then the man in the gray suit stood up. He walked forward with calm steps, not rushed, not nervous. Up close, he looked older than Nia had thought, with tired eyes and a face that belonged to someone who spent his life reading problems and deciding what was true. "Enough," he said, and his voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a knife through silk. Elena turned. "Sir, this is a private matter." "It became public the moment it was announced," the man replied. Then he looked at Nia, and his expression changed. "Recognition. Nia Carter," he said, as if confirming a name in his mind. Nia blinked. "Professor Reeve?" The room shifted again. People loved titles. They trusted them. Graham's eyes narrowed. "Who is this?" Professor Daniel Reeve turned to Graham with measured calm. Daniel Reeve, forensic accounting professor. Also an independent advisor for compliance reviews when certain organizations receive public benefit status. Graham's smile tightened at the word compliance. "And why are you interfering?" "Because I don't like watching someone be framed," Professor Reeve said simply. A hush fell so deep you could hear glasses being set down. Graham's voice stayed smooth. "You're making accusations." Professor Reeve nodded slightly. "Then let's avoid opinions. Let's use evidence." He looked at Elena. "Manager, this restaurant has security footage, yes?" Elena swallowed. "Yes, and the camera above the bar has been repaired today," Professor Reeve said, glancing up at the steady red light. "So it should have recorded clearly." Elena hesitated, eyes darting toward Graham. "Mr. Vale is a valued guest." Professor Reeve didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "And she is your employee. I suggest you value the truth more than his mood." Elena's face flushed. For a moment she looked like she might refuse. Then she looked at Nia's quiet expression, and something in Elena's posture changed, complicit to uncomfortable, uncomfortable to ashamed. "I'll get the footage," Elena said. While they waited, Graham leaned toward Professor Reeve, voice low but sharp. "You're overstepping." Professor Reeve looked back calmly. "You're used to people stepping back." Graham's eyes flashed. "I didn't take anything from her." "No," Professor Reeve said. "You tried to take her dignity. When that didn't work, you reached for something else." The sleek-haired woman finally spoke, her voice tight. "Graham, stop." He ignored her. Minutes later, Elena returned with a tablet connected to the restaurant's security system. Her hand shook slightly as she held it. The guard stood beside her, watching. Elena pressed play. The screen showed the center table. It showed Nia serving, moving cleanly, her hands visible. It showed Graham signing the receipt. It showed the $10 bill. It showed Nia picking it up, holding it out, and placing it back with calm precision. The room leaned closer, breath held. Then the footage showed Graham's left hand under the table for a moment. It showed him remove his cufflink, quick, practiced, and slip it into his napkin as he stood, his body blocking the view from most angles. But the camera angle above the bar caught it. Clear, undeniable. A quiet sound moved through the room, like shock turning into disgust. The younger man's grin vanished. The sleek-haired woman covered her mouth with her hand. Someone at a nearby table whispered, "He did it." Graham's face didn't fall apart dramatically. He was too practiced for that. But something in his eyes shifted, calculation racing, searching for an exit. Elena stared at the screen, then at Graham, as if she couldn't believe she had almost helped him ruin a young woman's life. Professor Reeve spoke again, steady. "There it is. You planted the missing item." Graham exhaled slowly, forcing a laugh that didn't land. "This is ridiculous. It was a misunderstanding." Professor Reeve tilted his head slightly. "A misunderstanding doesn't include hiding your own property and pointing security at an employee." Graham's voice hardened. "Do you know what you're doing?" "I can." The sleek-haired woman stepped forward and cut him off. "No," she said, and there was steel under her calm. She looked at Elena. "I'm on the board of the Vale Public Trust. My name is Celia Hart, and I'm watching this." Graham turned toward her, stunned. "Celia." Celia's eyes were cold now. "You used the Foundation's dinners as a stage for your ego. You filmed a server. You tried to humiliate her. And when she didn't break, you tried to accuse her of theft." Graham's jaw tightened. "You're overreacting." Celia shook her head. "I've been ignoring small things for too long. This isn't small." She turned to Professor Reeve. "Professor, I want a full compliance review. Immediately." Graham's face drained of that polished confidence. Just for a second. Elena cleared her throat, voice shaking but firm. "Mr. Vale," she said, "you need to leave." Graham looked around, expecting allies, expecting silence. But the room had changed. No one was smiling at him now. People weren't impressed. They were embarrassed to have witnessed it. Graham grabbed his jacket. The younger man followed, suddenly quiet. Celia stayed behind. As Graham walked toward the doors, he passed Nia. He paused, leaned in slightly, and spoke in a voice only she could hear. "You think you won," he said. Nia looked at him without fear. "I think you showed who you are," she replied. Graham's eyes flicked toward the camera above the bar, and then he left. When the doors closed behind him, the room exhaled. Elena turned to Nia, and for the first time that night, her manager voice disappeared. What was left was a woman who realized she had almost helped someone powerful destroy someone powerless. "I'm sorry," Elena said quietly. "I should have protected you." Nia nodded once. "Yes," she said. "Not cruel. Not loud. Just true." Professor Reeve approached Nia with a gentler expression. "You handled that with more discipline than most adults I know," he said. Nia swallowed, the adrenaline finally loosening its grip. "I didn't want to give him what he wanted." Professor Reeve nodded. "And what did he want?" Nia looked at the star paperclip on the counter, then slipped it back into her pocket. "A story where I'm the problem," she said, "so he can feel right." Professor Reeve held her gaze. "Your clinical evaluation starts next month, doesn't it?" Nia blinked, surprised. "Yes." Professor Reeve smiled slightly. "I have a colleague who runs a scholarship fund for nursing students with strong ethics. Not glamorous, not public, just real help. I'd like to recommend you." Nia's throat tightened. "I thank you." Celia Hart stepped closer too, her voice softer now. "Nia," she said, "I can't undo what you went through tonight, but I can make sure it has consequences, and I can make sure you're not alone in it." Nia nodded, careful not to let her tears spill in the dining room. She had cried in bathrooms before. She had cried on buses. Tonight, she wanted to stand. By the time the shift ended, the restaurant felt different. Not magically better, but awake. A few guests left extra tips quietly, without speeches. One older couple stopped Nia on their way out. "You did the right thing," the woman whispered. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." When Nia finally stepped outside into the cold night air, the city felt sharper, cleaner, like she could breathe again. She walked to the bus stop with her notebook tucked safe in her pocket, her pen beside it, her little star paperclip pressing against her fingers. At home, Milo was still awake, pretending he had been doing homework. "You're late," he said, trying to sound annoyed, failing. Nia sat beside him and let out a long breath. "I had a night," she said. Milo noticed her eyes. "Bad." Nia looked at him, then shook her head. "Hard," she said, "but important." She didn't tell him everything. Not yet. But she held his lucky paperclip in her hand and smiled, small and real. "Your star worked," she said. A week later, Professor Reeve called her with the scholarship information. It wasn't millions. It wasn't a movie ending. It was enough to cover a semester's tuition and a portion of her clinical fees. Enough to let her cut back one shift and sleep like a human being again. Elena also offered Nia a new role at the restaurant, training new staff, a small raise, and a promise, written and signed, that no employee would ever be searched without clear evidence and proper procedure again. Nia accepted the scholarship. She accepted the new role. And she accepted something else too. The truth that dignity is not something anyone gives you. It's something you decide to keep, even when someone rich tries to buy it off you for $10. Because character shows up in the moments no one thinks will matter. In the way you treat people who can't fight back. In the way you react when you don't get the submission you expected. And in the quiet strength of a young woman who refuses to be turned into a lesson for someone else's fragile ego. If this story reminded you that self-worth can't be priced, drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in Nia's place. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that respect is not optional.